Welcome to the Empower Me Show with Pam Bright. This show is all about honoring you as a spiritual being, having a human experience. You are here for a reason, and it's no mistake that you are here on Earth right now. Spirit has guided you to this very moment in time, so you could hear the messages Pam is about to share with you. She is a multidimensional healer, light language channel, transformation coach, wife, and mother, committed to helping you discover the tools and practices to empower you to live the best life you can. You get to choose the spirit path you take. You can connect to the spiritual guidance already all around you. Get ready to live a fully empowered life. This is the Empower Me Show.
Welcome to another episode of the Empower Me Show with Pam Bright. My name is Pam Bright. This is my husband, David Buck, and we are here to talk to you about the element of fire. This is Choosing Your Empowered Life episode, and we had our first episode with this series of the elements with Natasha Monique, who talked about air. And we did a couple of those episodes, I believe, with her. So you got a really good, solid foundation with air. And today we're going to talk about fire. What is fire and what does fire have to do with us? David, what is your experience with fire? I'd love to know that. And then I'll talk about my own.
Well, I think the earliest concept I had of fire was, well, it's hot, it burns, it's I think when I thought of it originally, it was sort of a negative energy, sort of like, oh, well, it's anger, and it's a dragon breathing fire, and it's something to be careful of, and it's something to be wary of, and it's something that is destructive. But as I grew into some more spiritual awareness, I realized that it really can be channeled in very different ways. We're going to talk a little bit more about that today.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for that intro. I also have been fascinated by fire and have had many different journeys myself with the element of fire. And one of the journeys that I'd like to take you on right now is that really help us to ground into who we are as the fire element ourselves, and how do we connect in with the fires that are already all around us. So I'm going to bring my testy drum, my lovely drum that I made years and years ago, to do that. And just go ahead and follow along with me and really get into your heart space. And you can do that through your breathing. This breathing connects you to the element of air, as well as the fire that burns within you. And it definitely needs air in order to have that happen. So if you're in a place where you can close your eyes, go ahead and do that, because that helps you really to go within quickly and connect in with all of who you are as a body system. So just go ahead and listen to my voice and the sound of the drum to connect you in with who you are. Hey, hey, na, yeah, hey, hey, na, yeah, na, na. Hey, hey, na, na, hey, hey, na, na, hey, hey, na, na, ya, na. Hey, hey, na, na, ya, hey, na, na, hey, hey, na, 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 yeah. Hey, hey, na, na, hey, hey, na, na, hey, hey, na, 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 na. So that really got me connected to the sacred aspect of fire that which we wouldn't exist without. The lava at the center of the earth, the fire that comes from the sun, and the fire that's at the heart of all the chemical processes that are necessary for life. We're surrounded by it.
an aspect of our lives every day. The fire that is put into whatever heating elements that you use throughout the year as well.
Mhm. Yes, so I first heard, this is a Native American style drum that I made many, many years ago, and started doing sacred drum circles with other women and other men, and learned from the Native American folks that the drum actually connects us to our heartbeat, and our heartbeat connects us to what we know as the Mother Earth. And as I have been exploring the Mother Earth energies, I've connected in with the fire that is within her belly and at the core of her. And so as you were listening to the drum, you can use any drum, any kind of instrument, but the drum really, it just brings you into the core of you, and you can connect into that fire element to find out what is the root of who I am. What is at the core of who I am with this fire? You can visualize fire right at the core of your belly to connect in and ask yourself, what are my passions? What lights me up? What brings in all of the elements of the fire energy that can really guide me in my life? Your wants and your dreams and your passions and your deep desire is within the fire element.
There's so many different uses of the word fire. It can certainly be a noun for a fire. It can be an adjective for describing something as fiery, but it also can be a verb. And that's one of the most important things. Like when your synapses fire, that's what people talk about, how your brain functions back and forth, and the data connections. And you can even use that metaphor extended into your circulatory system. As you move throughout it, it is liquid flowing through there, but just like those synapses firing, it's you're firing on all cylinders, for instance, when you're moving through space.
Yes. Well, the other thing that I think about as you're talking about that is we just went through the 4th of July, so we're dealing with fireworks, right? And New Year's Eve, we have fireworks to talk about the excitement of life and bringing in a new year. And so that's another fire element. It's really, we've got fire elements all around us. David and I are wearing fire in our outfits. I've got some different colors in my onesie here that I'm wearing, and David's got this fire element with the earth right in the center of that fire. So thinking about all of the different ways that fire is used, back to when, the cavemen were first exploring what it's like to be on the planet Earth, and learning how to use fire as a way to cook things and to warm themselves when they're outside. They didn't have regular houses like we have today. They had caves to live in. And how do they use fire to be able to navigate all of the different elements that exist in nature? Fire is used to ward off the other animals so that they're safe. Lots of different ways of looking at fire.
We are going to take a break in a couple of minutes here. And when we come back, we'll be talking about the destructive uses of fire energy, and kind of in earlier phases of life, you might be more destructive in your uses of anger and fiery rage even. And you've gone through some of that yourself. And so we'll talk about the destructive, and then turn it back around a little later in the show to the constructive and creative uses of fire.
That's excellent. I look forward to hearing more about that from you, as well as sharing some of my own experiences with that. And something I want to leave you with before our break is, where do you allow yourself to be taken over by your own fire.
Mm-hmm.
Or another question to ask yourself is, where do you allow yourself to be afraid of your own fire? And keeping it suppressed because you're afraid of who might be underneath that fire. So when we come back, we'll talk more about that.
We're talking about fire today and fire energy. And earlier in your life, through whatever reasons or means, there was a lot of anger, a lot of fire energy that was misused in some ways and in some destructive forces. So for a point of contrast, why don't you provide some of that and, what you learned about what to do with that?
Absolutely. So actually, I'm going to go back in time a little bit more to my young years as a child. And what was true about me is that I had a lot of fear that I dealt with in my life. And the way that I didn't have a safe space to be able to feel my feelings. And so the way that I handled that is that I became an introvert very, very quickly. And I don't know when that started, but I didn't talk. I was very shy. I was quite afraid of the world and the people in it. And so I learned how to repress a lot. So I didn't talk about my feelings. I didn't really know how to handle my feelings. And so the way that my feelings would come out is with a lot of outbursts and a lot of what we call sabotage, a lot of things. And I was also felt very isolated. So I did a lot of things to get attention, and they were not positive things. They weren't happy things. They were, I had a lot of accidents and a lot of falls and did a lot of outward things to get attention, but they ended up being like, I'd get in trouble in school, and had gossip happen with the majority of the school kids, and just really outward ways to get attention that weren't positive. And then I found drugs and alcohol, which gave me permission, quote unquote, to feel my feelings in a very outwardly rageful way. So I went vacillating between outward rage and a lot of deep, deep sadness and despair. And when I wasn't having those two extremes, I was inwardly quiet and nobody knew what was happening. So my journey with fire was really intense. And when I finally got to a place where I realized that my use of drugs and alcohol was not working anymore to repress or express, and that I was really unhealthy and having problems with too many relationships in my life to count, it chose me to stop using those substances. That was the point when feelings surfaced pretty intensely, because that's what happens when someone is addicted to a substance or many substances, is that when they're stopped, all of the feelings come to the surface. And I really had no idea how to handle it. And so I remember very distinctly, I had a massage from a healing practitioner in a treatment center. And I remember her getting to my upper chest, so where my heart chakra was. And the minute that she touched there, I burst out into tears. And I was like, what do I do with this? And that started my journey of learning about my feelings. And I have many, many, many stories about that. But that was my first remembrance of how that started, was feeling that feeling and then being directed from my counselors there, okay, start writing. And so I started writing about my feelings.
What were some of the other ceremonies or, just things that you went through that had a fire aspect that really kind of helped you turn it around?
So two of the different ceremonies that I remember very well was I was introduced to a series of workshops for really facing feelings directly.
Mm.
And these workshops had groups of, like a team of practitioners that assisted those of us who were attending the workshop to go through processes to feel. And one of them in particular was using music and having a safe space to really dive into my rage. And it was I'd never done that before. I did never feel safe doing that. I felt like I was going to explode if I did that, end up in a mental institution. I had all kinds of ideas around it. So I needed a safe place to be able to dive in and just feel. And so I was able to do, punching in the air and kicking my legs around and stomping and screaming and, doing anything that I needed to in a safe place where I wasn't going to hurt anybody to feel intensely.
And I just want to add those kind of workshops still exist, and they can be found, and they're led by people who can help you and the others around you be safe. So it can be very cathartic and healing to go through something like that, but it helps also to have someone lead you through that process.
It really does. I don't recommend doing it by yourself unless you have really safe witnesses around you that can walk you through that process.
Yeah. What else have you done? What other kind of ceremonies involving fire have you done?
Well, as I said, I did a lot of drum circles, I did some sweat lodges to Native American sweat lodges to go into with prayer and music, and really allowing the feeling body, because we have all kinds of bodies within our body system, but really going into the feeling body in a safe way with other people through prayer and allowing nature and the earth to support me. And that was amazing. And I've done many of them.
You did fire walking as well. Let's hear a little bit about your experience with fire walk.
My fire walk experience. Well, once again, don't ever do that by yourself. Allow yourself a trained professional to walk you through that process. But I got to be with, 20 other people or so, maybe more than that, where we actually did several different processes. We did fire walking, board bending, or board breaking, and steel bending. And every one of those practices was a way to move through the resistance to whatever was in the way and break through to the other side. So with the fire walking, we went through, okay, so here's a pile of wood and this is how you lay it out. And then you in a certain way, and then we lit, with the newspaper in there, lit it up, a huge bonfire. And so we watched that fire transform as we were going through this workshop doing these other practices. And by the end, we went out and it was time. It was probably 4 hours worth of waiting until this fire was ready, because it was then coals. And then the facilitator raked them out into this long bed of coals. And one by one, we were shown how to walk the fire. And we were told to have a goal, have something that we wanted to reach. And that was at the end of the fire. And so the instructions were to focus on that
Mm.
and simply start walking and not stop until you got to the end.
Mhm.
And because this is the real thing, you will get burned if you stop. So the metaphor of that for me was don't stop until I reach my dreams.
Mm.
It was really powerful, incredibly powerful, very cathartic. And I recommend it to anyone who is especially dealing with a lot of fear in their lives or a lot of unstoppable ways of being.
Yeah, and again, if you want to pursue that, there are groups led all over the place. I think you did yours here in the Northwest, right?
I
Yeah.
did. The gentleman that led it, I don't think is doing it anymore, but there are actual firewalking institutes.
Mm.
So if you go online and just look up firewalking, you can find a group
Yeah.
to do that with.
But it's a great metaphor for all the challenges we go through. It really is a fire walking, a lot of times as a metaphor for the processes and hardships that we've got to go through to get to the other side. If you keep that goal in mind, that really helps. We're going to take another break here in a couple minutes. When we come back, we're going to talk about all the positive uses and creative uses and constructive uses of fire energy and how you can let that fuel your passion for what you're up to doing.
Absolutely. So I know that I didn't ask you when we came back about what came up for you around your own fear and your own fire, but really kind of look at that. This is an opportunity in this show to really access those parts of you that you may not have thought about much before. So this is a way for you again to look at who are you as a being, a human being having a spiritual experience and a spiritual being having a human experience. We have a lot of fire that we deal with in our human experience. So how do we use the spiritual energies to kind of squelch the fire or even fuel the fire so that we can have more enjoyment and peace and excitement in our lives? We'll be right back.
And we're talking about fire today. It's been said that people studying the discovery of fire, it's maybe one of the very first things that brought us together as a race. It separated us from all the other animals. It provided safety and food, and we learned to cook on fire. So it really goes deep and far back in our history that we have sort of a sacred and deep connection to fire. And we've used it in ceremonies of all kinds. You know, when you write a letter to someone that may be passed on, but yet you want to communicate something and you write it out and then you burn it and you bless it as it goes up into ashes. There's certainly a lot of uses for fire like that.
Yes. And what they say, what I learned about fire when we do that kind of ceremony is that the smoke, it's a signal to spirit that you're serious about your letting go and your connection to what you're doing. So when you are using writing as a tool and you need to release and get to that passion within you, that core of you, and you need to release, then strike a match and burn whatever it is that you just wrote. And that smoke signal will go up to source, and source will take that and transform it into something beautiful.
And fire is so easy to use as a metaphor for so many things, but I think my favorite is the fire within, the passion that you burn with to accomplish what you're up to in life. So it can really use that as a metaphor for fueling those endeavors.
I just remembered another part of that workshop I was talking to you about with the feeling workshop. I mentioned we used a lot of music in there, and one of the exercises was, and it was perfect for me because I was so terrified of any feeling I was feeling, that to get to the core of me and feel deeply was really scary. And one of the things that they did was that the facilitator wanted us to find our song, our passion
Mm.
to the core of us and have a song that would be channeled for that. And so she was very intuitive. And so she found the songs ahead of time
Mm.
before we even got to the workshop. And so this part of the workshop, she would play the song and our job was to dance it out. Well,
Mm.
I don't even remember what my song was, but it was something that really encompassed who I was and what I was about. And I was supposed to dance it out and get to that core part of me that was my passion. And when
Mhm.
I got to that core part of me that was my passion, that's when it was like this rock of a body just broke open and all of this feeling came out. And I was then at that point, all of the people that were in this workshop, their instruction was to then come and embrace me and
Mm.
hold me tightly so that I could
Mm.
just feel.
Nice.
And it was like so amazing.
Wow.
It was amazing. But see, those kinds of things are available all the time to us
Yeah.
when we let ourselves really explore who we are at the core. We
Yeah.
get to find out what's available.
And there's so many ways that you can explore the fire within. You can, if you're creative and you want to draw, you can draw it. You can find a pendant or a necklace or a bracelet or something or a shirt that represents fire. You've got a sun right here, and so you can. I think there's probably even different stones or crystals that have elements of fiery. Tinges to them. So you can remind yourself of that power that you want to hold on to and use in positive ways.
There are those of you who are stone people, you can actually inform those that aren't or are kind of wondering about it, what the fire elements are within the stone. I know they exist. I just can't think of which ones those are, but I'm thinking like the earth energies would have fire energies in them. Tiger's eye, maybe. So anything with gold would have that fire element. But the other part of the whole stone journey with fire is you can ask. Your stones are very intelligent, so you just ask the stone, what are the gifts that you have for me?
So one of the things we want to offer to you is it's so easy, even from a young age, to accumulate and hang on to anger in so many ways and resentment. And when you grow up a little bit more and mature, you can realize that you have that, but you don't want to use it as a destructive force. You can channel it you can channel your passions and your anger and your resentments into some creative endeavor, because when you get out there and you help other people, that transforms that kind of energy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the reasons that we do this show is because we are committed to your breakthrough. We're committed to your transformation and your empowerment. And one of the ways that we do that is to tap into all the different the tips, techniques, and tools that you might be able to use to actually find your own passion, your own desires, your own flame within, and um, really explore that. There's many different avenues for doing that. One of the things that I've done in my life is taught a group of folks with the Artist Way book.
Oh yeah.
And it's called, what do I call it? The Sacred
Creativity.
Group. And I've done several of those. And any of you who think that would be an interesting journey, let me know and I'll start up another group, because that would be really fun. We go through the book together and we talk about our own passions, our own desires, our own stopping points, and discover, what's available.
Yeah, I think one of the keys to a healthy life is not to hold on to those things. Find a way to express it or create it or use it in some ways. If it's construction, if it's teaching, if it's, I mean, any kind of endeavor where you're putting yourself out there. It's an interesting mix because I've been both an introvert and extrovert in my life. And, I think there's a balance there that some things you need to go within, but many more maybe you need to bring from within to give out to the world. And that really helps transform things.
Absolutely. So, and I thought that I just had with, again, going from being an introvert and very scared of the world, one of the ways that I have really found my truest nature of being a playful child is when I had a child. When I birthed a child, it's been this whole exploration of what does it mean to be childlike? What does it mean to face myself? What does it mean to teach another person about life in a way that isn't condemning, isn't judgmental, and actually helps them?
Yeah.
So our child has been amazing mentor for me.
She's our teacher.
Yeah, in learning how to be, all of who I am. So find a way in your life to learn about whatever you're interested in, whether it's chakras or drawing a tree or cooking a good meal.
Let's take it back a step for a moment. And can you imagine, like here, we didn't talk about this before, but a quick, maybe 3-step process that you could, if you feel a swell of fire, anger, or rage coming up within you, what can you do to just kind of, it's not about suppressing it, but it's about channeling it, transforming it?
Well, I always think of the breath first, because the breath is what connects you to who you are as a human being. And it is imperative that as a human being that you are willing and able to acknowledge that humanness. And so your breath brings you to center. It actually calms you down. It shifts the brain waves to be able to stop what you're doing, pause, and make a new choice. And I need to do this when I get triggered. Okay. Triggers are those things that automatically set you off. And there's times that we're all going to have that. So in that moment, we have signals in our family when one of us gets triggered. This is a good one, stop. Or this is another one, or this could be another one, stop. And then just, bring it down.
If you feel like you need some sort of signal or device, even as dramatic as a white flag, talk about it with the other person so that they understand, look, I need some space. I need to set a boundary. I need to walk away for a moment, but I'll be back. It's not a rejection of whatever's happening at the moment. It's just so that the explosions don't get out of control.
Right.
So we're going to take another break here in a couple of minutes. And when we come back, we'll be talking more about the spiritual aspects of all of this. And the fire as a metaphor for our spiritual lives.
Absolutely. We'll be right back. And again, this is your opportunity to really look at your life. What has come up for you in this episode so far? And where do you want to go with this information? We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are talking about the fire element of the element series of Choosing Your Empowered Life. And David is with me here, and we're talking about the spiritual aspects of what the fire element is and how does that pertain to you as an individual and you in the world. So when I think of fire in the world, I think of my service. What am I here to do? What's my vision and purpose in the world. And David, I know that you and I have talked extensively about this topic, but when you think of vision and purpose, what comes up for you around that?
Well, so much. It's just, when you have a vision of something that you think could be, to make a difference in the world, to make a change, and we still need so many changes. I like to think that in this modern age in 2021, even as we struggle to say, is it the end of the pandemic or not? I think there's been a bit of a cocoon that we can emerge out of in the next couple of years, and hopefully bring a lot more of those positive changes that are needed as we move forward collectively than perhaps we did before the pandemic. It's a great opportunity to step back. So I think of that as a vision, and then the purpose would be like, oh, I see this as my part. Like when we do this show, it's a bit of our parts together to help others just realize what they could do, what you could do for the world, as spiritual beings having a human experience. And there's a lot to be said for the inspiration of fire in the heavens from the stars. And it's an amazing concept to have the kids realize for the first time that all the stars you see in the sky, each one of those is a sun. And at the heart of the sun is a fire. And, having that element from within, oh, I have fire within me.
Mm-hmm. So I just touched on when you were talking about what is light. Light from a star, light from the sun, light from the moon, light from Mars, all of those have a lot of fire in them. And so then I went immediately to, oh, I speak light language. Light language is literally language from light. So light from stars is information from back when the first star existed in the world. So when I think about that, that's like the core of my passion, the core of my information to bring to the world, if you will.
Yeah.
So I think about what is it at the core of me that is here to gift to you as an individual in the world.
The earliest starlight is 13, 14, maybe 15 billion years old.
That's crazy.
That we know of right now. So that's real ancient information. And, there's a whole different series of levels of belief in star beings from that far back. But, if that's true, then there's information there to just be gleaned from receiving that starlight from so long ago.
Well, and they say that every single being that exists on the planet Earth, we have a mirror of that in the heavens. So the heavens are our mirror. So if you're wondering how to exist in the world, look to the heavens, look to the stars. Astrologers know how to do that. Those that navigate the seas, look to the stars to know which way to go. So the stars are an amazing tool for accessing our inner passion and our inner fire within us, and finding that light that always exists within the core of us.
And scientists are discovering new ways to analyze the light that comes from nearby stars to see that there may be habitable planets and what life may exist on there. So as we continue to explore light and the fire within and the fire without, we will find new ways of experiencing what it means to be a human being.
I love that. So I think we have just a couple minutes, but I'd love to have you do a little bit of visualization here and find that fire within you, that light that's always burning within you. And so I invite you to just simply close your eyes for a couple minutes. And if you're driving, please don't. Please just listen to my voice and know that you can still do this visualization with your eyes open. But go ahead and close your eyes and allow your breath to access that part of you that is fire, that is light. It might be a faint light that exists right now. It might be far away, it might be really bright, but go ahead and access that simply by your intention. You might go right into the core of your belly or into your heart space. Somewhere in that region is that beautiful fire light. And allow through your breath to let that light get brighter and brighter and brighter. And allow that light to expand through every breath until that light fills your entire body, starting at your core of your torso and expanding to include your arms, your hands, your fingers, goes down into your legs and your feet, goes up into your throat, expanding into your head, and then let that light just burst forth through the top of your head and all around you. Allowing that light to just illuminate all of who you are, allowing your light body to support your human self in your path, on your journey today.
So we're just wrapping up here, but we want to say thank you very much for joining us on the Empower Me show today. It's every Monday at 3 p.m. We're not sure of next week's topic at this moment, but we'll be back again next month with another element. What element is that?
Next month, we are going to bring in another special guest. Her name's Amanda Smith, I believe her last name is. And she is going to talk about the element of earth with Choosing Your Empowered Life episode. And next week, as David said, we're not quite sure yet what we're going to talk about, but it's going to be illuminating and inviting and empowering and very loving for you. And we absolutely love and adore you. And we are here for you as support.
So hopefully we've helped your synapses fire a little bit in different ways today. We've given you some things to think about. We want to say thank you to the team of producers at Transformation Talk Radio for hosting our show here today. And we'll see you again next week.
Please connect with us on the Empower Me show at brightbutterflyenterprises.com, or you can email us at theempowermeshow@gmail.com. We love you. Have a blessed day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Empower Me Show with Pam Bright on Transformation Talk Radio. Tune in every Monday at 3 p.m. to learn more about living a fully empowered life. Remember that your life is up to you, and you can choose the spiritual path you are on. There is spiritual energy and wisdom in everything and everyone around you. Listen carefully for what the universe is trying to tell you in every moment. You are already being guided along your journey. Call upon your spirit guides anytime you need help with anything. Know that you are safe in every moment, even if it seems that you are not. For more information about Pam Bright, visit brightbutterflyenterprises.com or email theempowermeshow@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening. We hope to see you next week.